talk of a political dirt unit.
Good evening, Daniel.
Oh, g'day, Brendan. How we going, mate?
Jeff's here today.
Yeah, I was going to say, where's Jeff? G'day, Jeff. Good to see you, everybody. Jeff and dogs of all breeds, of course. Let's not leave the other dogs out. Yeah. Well, ladies, gentlemen.
I haven't been doing the intro because it feels weird because we're on video and it feels like more of a listening intro.
Well, the dogs are going, wait, what's going on?
So, I've had more people reach out after the last podcast than ever has reached out after a podcast before to all tell me that it ended abruptly. So just in case anyone else is thinking it ended abruptly, I'm well aware that it ended abruptly because I cut the thing in half.
It was a two-parter.
We're going to get half of it on this one.
Okay.
Because it just I don't know. I try not to make them go over an hour and a half because attention span seems to drop off at that point. So
right.
I thought it'd good to chop it where it was because this episode we don't have to focus so much on Epstein because this will be the remainders of the network up until the turn of the millennium. Okay. And there was a couple of things that we went over in the recording of the last one that I took out because like the Jean-Luc Brunel stuff, it was in the wrong spot on the timeline. I got my dates mixed up. He didn't come into the picture until the mid-90s rather than the early 90s.
Okay. So is there still something to be dropped from the last one, or are we cutting straight in with this one?
Yeah. So I'll when it's time to chuck, it's just the Prince Andrew stuff and the Jean-Luc Brunel stuff,
and that's going to go into this one.
That's going to go into this one. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Gotcha.
We'll do a little bit of speculation in this one, maybe, if we're feeling we've got some ideas. If we've got some ideas brewing.
We can do that.
But I guess we'll just start where we left off. Should we recap? I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't need a recap because I feel like I've just. I mean, it takes me like 3 weeks to fucking edit these podcasts, so I'm well up to speed with the last few episodes, but.
Oh, look, quick recap. Give us, let us, it's been a little while between drinks.
Well, we started off in the first part when we looked at we tried to look at the beginnings of Epstein and how he sort of came his way into this world and what the network was around him that he came in with. And that network happened to be the same network implicated in the Iran-Contra scandal, the privatized deep state that was created throughout the Cold War. Two sort of key figures in this whole, privatized, shady network were Adnan Khashoggi and Robert Maxwell.
Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein, when he leaves Bear Stearns, his first client, Douglas Leese, who introduces him to Adnan Khashoggi, and he starts working with Khashoggi as, I guess he refers to him as his first client. I don't know if it was actually Khashoggi or Leese, but I think Leese introduced him to Khashoggi. So I think Leese was technically his first client. Both of them are arms traffickers. Both of them operate in the Middle East. So same. But obviously, when you've got another key figure of the Iran-Contra network being Robert Maxwell, and then you've got the woman whose name I've been pronouncing wrong this whole time, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's pops up with Epstein at the middle of what seems to be this same fucking network's reincarnation. And we looked at it in the first episode. We spent a lot of time looking at the evolution of this private, deniable, these kind of private, deniable intelligence, shady operations, starting with the East India Company and looking at the evolution all the way through to the Cold War, the Gladio networks. Then it all came out in the Iran-Contra scandal. It all got shut down, but it actually just got a little more of a step back. And the figures in the middle of it were Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, also Donald Trump, Roger Stone, and they're probably your four keys, I suppose. Paul Manafort, I think, probably you could call a key person as well in that little nexus. I mean, and on that, I think. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it's Ghislaine who's like the one in this. So for lack of a better term, we'll just call it Western Goals. I know Western Goals Foundation shut down in the Iran-Contra scandal, but essentially it's this same thing. And I think Ghislaine is a part of it because, we just for all these sort of like high-profile people involved with Epstein recently talking about their involvement, when pressed on their involvement, they're always stress the point that they're friends with Ghislaine. They only know him through Ghislaine. And it matches up because he was introduced to all these people through Ghislaine. I don't think Ghislaine is just an accomplice or just a manager. I think she's a key. So, as a consequence of this network, as we've been looking or uncovering this network that was unearthed in the Iran-Contra scandal, we've been looking at the prongs of that network and tracking them through our timeline of Epstein. So, most importantly, we've been tracking the timeline of Jamal Khashoggi alongside Jeffrey Epstein because obviously his uncle Adnan Khashoggi is Jeffrey Epstein's,
first client,
I suppose. I don't know. Good buddy, we'll say. And their careers sort of took off at the same time. And that's led some interesting places. And we'll pick back up with that network shortly.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground.
We have. And this episode will focus more on the network because we'll just say it gets pretty interesting.
Okay. Wow.
So the first thing, which we recorded last time, which I'll splice in here, is my thoughts on the role of Prince Andrew. So let's just talk about, for a second, the two most prominent and overshadowing useful idiots that are usually mentioned when we're talking about Epstein. The first is Prince Andrew. I think we have to bin the whole official story that they've been peddling, this whole narrative of this bumbling, the big dumb duke, the bumbling foolish royal who got ensnared by a charismatic predator. This is a caricature. It's a perception management operation and a very effective one. But it has to be designed to hide a much deeper and more systematic truth. My analysis, based on everything I've pulled together, is that Prince Andrew wasn't a target of the Epstein network. The only logical conclusion I could logically draw is that he was a coordinator, or at least a willing participant who was operating within a framework of parallel power that his title and his entire bloodline has groomed him for over generations. This can't be a case of the Duke of York, the bumbling, big dumb Duke of York's personal failing. I mean, it just can't. It just doesn't add up.
Why not?
Well, I'll explain. I don't have a smoking gun, but hear me out.
I'm not saying it does. I'm just interested to hear your reason.
But first, we have to understand the job description. The Duke of York. Historically, the Duke of York is the second son of the monarch, the spare. And that role has traditionally been linked to the leadership of a parallel power structure. Freemasonry.
Oh, okay.
So, not a Duke of York, but the Queen's consort, his dad, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, he was, the only other male aside from Charles who could possibly sit above him. He was a confirmed Freemason his whole life, though ultimately didn't seem that into it, just was at a formality. But his grandfather, the former Duke of York, Prince Andrew's grandfather, was not just a Freemason. Arguably, he was one of the most dedicated and high-ranking royal masons in modern history. He was initiated in 1919. He became the master of his lodge. His dedication was...
Prince Philip, yeah?
No, this is King George VI. He was the Duke of York because he was a spare.
Right, okay.
Because his brother ran off with an American.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was the highest rank. He was the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. When he ascended to the throne, he took the title of the past Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England. He held the highest rank. He was the first Grand Principal in the Supreme Grand Chapter of the Royal Archmasons of England, which is the core of the York Rite in the UK. He was also the Grand Master of the Great Priory of the United Religious, Military and Masonic Orders of the Temple of England and Wales, aka the Masonic Knights Templar. So the man who was Duke of York before the title went dormant until it was given to Andrew was the head of both mainstream Freemasonry and the Masonic Knights Templar
in England.
And this is King George the Sixth.
Yes. Like, there's also a lot more history going back. This bear roll seems to me, but, you know, I have nothing to base this on other than, like, these facts. But it certainly seems like it's the traditional role for the spare to lead a parallel, private, deniable network of influence on behalf of the crown, insulated from public scrutiny, that follows the direct heir who becomes the king. So, okay, the York Rite. Remember, Duke of York. There's a whole vein of Freemasonry is the York Rite Freemasonry. And the York Rite Freemasonry houses the Knights Templar. Why is the Knights Templar a bit important? Because it's a connecting tissue. The York Rite of Freemasonry, and specifically its Templar degrees, is the primary ideological sinew that connects the British establishment to the Zionist project and the broader great game in the Middle East. The ritualistic drama of the Templar degrees is all centered on rebuilding King Solomon's temple. It creates a profound personal and spiritual link for its initiates to the physical geography of Jerusalem, frames its members as modern warrior monks with a sacred duty to defend the Christian faith and the Holy Land. In the 20th century, we can see how this esoteric vow was translated into a political imperative to support the creation and defense of the State of Israel as the modern guardian of the holy places. The Balfour Declaration wasn't just a political document. You could frame it as the public manifestation of this private Masonic Templar covenant that the king was head of at the time. Prince Andrew, as the modern Duke of York, is the direct heir to this entire historical and ideological legacy. He was born into and conditioned by a system that normalizes secrecy, private networks, and off-the-book statecraft. It's in his blood. If you look at the trajectory of the royal family, working from the correct premise that they know exactly what the fuck they're doing, it's how they got where they are, we see they're in a gradual generational progression of stepping back, initiated by Elizabeth post-World War II. But the important strategic assets were not liquidated. It's an illusion. We're in a deliberate generational step towards synarchy. This is why do you know what synarchy is? Do you want to explain that? Probably. Synarchy is like it's like, you know, it's an ideology, like it's like a political ideology where like the leaders of the country, the people who call the shots, are a secretive group of individuals that no one knows who the fuck they are.
Okay.
That's what synarchy is.
Sounds like deep statey.
It's Alexander Dugin's thing.
Oh.
That he's like into.
Sounds like a deep state?
Yes. Well, yeah, it's the realization of the end goal, the ultimate form of a deep state. This is why I take the fact that there's not a single bit of documented evidence at all linking Andrew to the Freemasons as more suspicious than exonerating, especially considering he was a Navy helicopter pilot and the Navy Lodge is where all his forefathers, including his dad, and all the former Dukes of York have been initiated into Freemasonry. His whole family, specifically the Dukes of York, have always been about the Freemasons. It's called the York Rite. It's not officially tied to the Duke of York, but obviously, symbolically, it is, and historically, it is. And if any group takes the symbology of something seriously, it's the fucking Freemasons. He's probably not directly leading them, and actually he's not, because directly leading them is Prince Edward, I'm pretty sure. The Queen's brother, is that right?
Which?
I don't know. Is it the Queen's brother, Prince Edward?
Maybe.
I don't know. It is a royal that's leading the Freemasons currently. It's not Andrew.
Oh, I've got no idea.
But perhaps the step back for the spare is Andrew were leading a broader coalition of deniable factions, not just the Freemasons. Regardless, when he encounters Epstein, I can't accept that it was the case of an outsider being captured. This is essentially the senior partner from an old firm leveraging the assets of a new, more aggressive one. And if you want proof of tradecraft, look no further than the 2010 walk and talk in Central Park. You know, the story that is simply too honourable. It literally is fucking his excuse for being with Epstein. I'm too honourable. I'm sorry. Like, I had to go meet him in person and break it off. I couldn't just do it over the phone. So, like, your story paints him as a fool for meeting Epstein after his first conviction. That's bullshit. This is the behavior of an operative managing a compromised asset, trying to have a conversation that he can't have over the phone or in a building. The content of this conversation had to have been deemed more dangerous than the risk of being photographed.
Yeah.
You have to have. Like, it's not a naive big dumb juke. This is a manager managing a problem.
Yeah.
And the subsequent cover up and the deployment of this like big dumb juke caricature. Like, I'm not just like saying that from nothing. They literally made a whole made-for-TV docudrama about the behind the scenes of his TV interview that cemented the narrative. This is something that they fucking do. I used to live in the UK. This is how they frame a narrative. Like, they could have just shown, you know, behind the scenes footage of the interview, but no, they got an actor to play Andrew, and they really show every aspect of how he came to do that interview and how the big dumb Duke just couldn't fucking hold himself on the stage. And while one of his real jobs was being a patron of Chatham House, also starting in 1997, he became a patron of the Middle East Association, which is interesting context considering the woman who in an alternative timeline would be queen right now, the Princess of Wales. Following her divorce, Diana was a global superstar. She'd been stripped of official royal protection, and she was locked in her own great game with the crown. In the summer of 97, she found sanctuary within the private infrastructure of the Fayed family. This move, however, was not a simple romance. It placed her right at the very center of a high-stakes geopolitical game. Because the patriarch Dodi's father, Mohammed al-Fayed, was a man very loudly and publicly at war with the British establishment that had denied him citizenship. Mohammed al-Fayed owned Harrods, department store. Big UK department store. Not one to let a good opportunity go to waste, he used his son's relationship with Diana as his ultimate play for leverage. And at the same time, the Fayed family, in particular Dodi, was inextricably linked by blood to the network's founding patron, Adnan Khashoggi.
Yes.
Who was his uncle.
Right.
Now, he's there. They separated in like the 50s. Mohammed al-Fayed and Khashoggi's sister. And Dodi was obviously stayed with his dad. So he wasn't really that close with his mum. But Adnan Khashoggi was still a documented guest on the Fayed yacht that summer when Diana and Dodi were hiding out on it.
Right.
Which is just an interesting, I don't have anything to make of that. It's just interesting.
So Dodi's mother was Adnan's
Khashoggi's sister.
Right. Okay.
This is the thing, and this is a point I need to make, and here's a better place to make it than any. This might seem like a sprawling story with all these massive interconnected, but
it's
this is a very small group of people.
It's pretty contained, yeah.
Like, this is a very small group of people. Even all the Russia stuff, all this fucking, all the fucking Islam stuff.
Yeah, you could.
There's a very small group of people.
Fit them in a minibus.
All connected.
Yeah.
And the Khashoggi family is fucking connected with like every aspect of it. So this situation of Diana and Dodi was extremely complex and dangerous. So the Crown's most volatile asset was operating inside the bubble of a hostile billionaire, a bubble that was simultaneously connected to one of their own service layer contractors. It was not a clean containment at all. It was a dangerous double game being played by multiple sides over the mother of the future king. And the catastrophic end to this game came in a Paris tunnel in 1997.
Boom, boom.
And I'm not going to, I'm not going to speculate on anything there other than to say it's interesting that, it was Adnan Khashoggi's nephew that also died in that car crash. I'm not going to give you any definitive conclusions to any of this, but I'm just going to lay out the facts like I've just laid out the facts, and I'm just going to ask a couple of simple questions. Is it really plausible that Prince Andrew, patron of Chatham House, patron to the Middle East, man whose family already had a pre-existing multifaceted relationship with the Khashoggi network, who historically the other people with his title have literally led the beating heart of the English support for the Zionist project, he just happened to stumble into the Epstein orbit by pure chance? Or did a friend of his he met by chance, a paid-up member of the CFR and Trilateral, decide that he needs to compromise the man whose empire set up the whole damn thing in the first place? A relationship whom every country, his associates, and himself are linked to depend on for their national security. Make it make sense.
I mean, I don't think anything at that level is really happening by chance, is it?
No, it can't be. Like, it literally can't be. It can't be a coincidence. Like, it, like, I'm just like, it's just, no, I'm sorry. It just, you gotta be fucking real. Like, I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be the case. Anyway, the reframing of Bill Clinton.
So when we talk about Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, the story always seems to start in the 90s with a charismatic president being charmed by a mysterious wealthy financier. And if you believe that, I've got a painting of Bill Clinton and an address to sell you. We need to go back to his time as governor of a little state called Arkansas, because deep in the hills of Arkansas, there's a small, obscure airfield called the Mena Intermountain Municipal Airport. Its obscurity made it the perfect spot for a deniable covert operation. And the man running the show out of Mena was a legendary drug smuggler and CIA contract pilot named Barry Seal. You could call him the Adnan Khashoggi of the air. He was the go-to private contractor for moving illicit goods for this network. And he was running the most important part of the Iran-Contra affair.
Was this played by Tom Cruise?
Maybe.
In that movie, like some American drug movie?
I don't know. I have not seen it, but would not surprise me. The name is familiar, isn't it? Barry Seal.
Yeah. Is that because you've talked? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think I've mentioned his name yet.
Okay. Yeah, American Made is the movie. And yeah, this guy ends up being the... that's where I heard it. Got it. Yeah, good film. American Made, this guy's a pilot who becomes a drug trafficker. And as I'm sure you're about to tell us, gets some help from the this little governor of Arkansas. Well, Arkansas, we should say. I'm not going to pronounce it. It's Arkansas. I'm not going to buy into this bullshit pronunciation.
Yeah, I mean, who are we to talk about odd place names? But so it was a simple guns for drugs pipeline.
Yes.
Unmarked planes flying south out of Mena, loaded with weapons, destined for the Contra rebels fighting the communists in Nicaragua. Then the same planes flying back north, loaded to the gills with cocaine from the Colombian cartels.
Yes.
The profits from selling that cocaine on American streets were then laundered and used to fund the Contra war.
Yes.
Directly smashing the law passed by US Congress that had explicitly forbidden it. It was one of the biggest drug and weapons smuggling rings in American history, involving a whole fleet of aircraft and hundreds of millions of dollars. And it was all happening for years out of a small state airport in Arkansas. Numerous state-level investigations into Mena were mysteriously shut down, had their funding cut, or just fizzled out. Key witnesses connected to the case had a nasty habit of dying in suspicious plane crashes or unsolved murders. And that's not even a conspiracy theory. It's a documented reality. And through all of it, despite years of local and national reporters screaming about it, Governor Clinton's administration took no significant action to dismantle the massive criminal enterprise based in his own state. So to me, it's pretty obvious. Clinton's decade as governor wasn't a normal political career. He showed that he had the ability to plausibly deny knowledge of the criminal infrastructure that underpins this whole system. He showed that he understood that the unspoken rules, that certain operations, no matter how illegal or filthy, are essential to the great game and must be protected at all costs. So when Clinton started his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein in the 90s, it wasn't a seduction of the innocent. It was a logical, seamless transition. He was just moving from one of the network's service layer contractors to another. Clinton's comfort with Barry Seal's world in the 80s is the only context you need to understand his comfort with Jeffrey Epstein's world in the 90s.
Right.
So in the timeline where we're at 19, we're at the late 90s. So 95 to 2000 is the period of time we're mostly going to be covering today. And we already covered Epstein and Maxwell in that period of time. They got the plane, they got the island, they got the presidents.
Multiple planes and multiple islands.
Yes. They got the bigger island next door. But I don't think they bought that till like 2016 or something, actually. But we need to check in with the other big guy, the man whose financial and political trajectory during this period was not a random comeback story. No. Donald Trump, fresh off his near catastrophic financial collapse earlier in the decade, he was undergoing his own strategic recapitalization and repositioning, overseen by the same financial networks that now control him. This was his incubation period, making him perfectly positioned for what was coming for him. So first, we've got to understand his financial situation. We went over this last time. But he had his near catastrophic 1991 bankruptcy, which was brokered by Wilbur Ross of Rothschild Inc. And he signed his brand over to the bondholders. It was Carl Icahn was the only name of bondholders that owned the Trump brand at this point that we know. And interesting is that a second little black book of Jeffrey Epstein has just surfaced like last week. And this was like something that was like found on like a New York sidewalk in the 90s. And some guy's trying to sell it now. He's like had it ever since he's realized it was Epstein's. And this is a whole, like a lot of overlap with the last one, but also like a whole new set of names. And one of those names is Carl Icahn. He's a big shot, Icahn. Like he's a big Wall Street guy. So it's not really a surprise that his name's in there, but it's just interesting because, you know, he's the guy who bailed out Trump and owned the Trump brand.
This is after the casino bankruptcies, right?
Yeah, in 1991.
Right.
Until 1998, when a lifeline appeared from a very interesting source, Deutsche Bank, the German financial giant, which was aggressively trying to expand its footprint in the US market at the time. They agreed to become Donald Trump's primary lender. Deutsche Bank, known for its willingness to service high-risk and politically exposed clients, was the same institution that would provide the essential deniable banking infrastructure for the entire Epstein operation. So Trump was no longer just a controlled commodity in theory. He was now a financially captured asset. His entire resurgence through the late 90s, every new tower, every new golf course was funded by the network's preferred bank. And they bailed him out of his situation with the bondholders, and they allowed him to gain his brand back.
Trump brand.
Interestingly, whilst he was being financially rescued, he was also being politically tested. In late 1999, Donald Trump launched a high-profile, short-lived campaign for the presidential nomination of the Reform Party.
Yes.
The public narrative was that this was an act of some maverick businessman testing the political waters. That or this was a field test. But the campaign was never designed to win. It was
spoiler for
probably designed to test his viability to an extent, see if his Trump's brand of celebrity populism could attract, a political base. But crucially, it was designed to act as a spoiler. It was there to draw votes away from the hard-right conservative candidate, Pat Buchanan, and ensure that the mainstream Republican candidate would not face a serious challenge from his right flank. And I say that with certainty because his campaign was run by none other than Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, yes.
During all this, the professional overlap of the 80s with Epstein continues to blossom into his very public, very close friendship of the 90s. In the late 90s, Mar-a-Lago became a primary social and operational hub for the Epstein and his network.
Was Epstein was living in Florida at that time, I assume?
Yeah, he lived nearby. And I think this is like Mar-a-Lago is probably the most overlooked private, exclusive club in the fucking world. Like, people don't think twice about it because it's Trump's house. But Mar-a-Lago is essentially like the Australia Club of America. The things half the fucking, the billionaires, the Australian billionaires, are like members of Mar-a-Lago. This is where the billionaires hang out.
Yeah.
It's I think it's just a point that is kind of is a bit overlooked. Just how much of a close how big an influential network is so close to Trump.
Yeah, and there was a fair bit happening around that sort of neighborhood as well. Recently, I meant to send you this stuff before. Does the Alpha Omega Research Foundation mean anything to you? Or Miller Deutsch? No? Okay, well, that's too big to get into here, but I'll send it to you later. But it's basically, they were doing this sciencey stuff, sort of vaguely theosophical overtones, quantum sort of, no, neither do I. But they sort of had properties around, they had a property close to Mar-a-Lago. And it raised alarm bells for me because of the stuff that we've been, talking about with Maxwell and Russian science and all that sort of stuff.
Mar-a-Lago was built to be the White House. It's what it was supposed to be, the White House of the South. Yeah. If the Confederacy won the Civil War, Mar-a-Lago would be the White House.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm not well versed enough on any of that to go into it. But yeah, Mar-a-Lago, it's an interesting place. I mean, it's a funky property. Too big and gaudy.
No, I'd happily live in it.
Florida? Ew.
Yes, that's the problem, isn't it? It's in Florida. So the period 1995 to 2000, it was not some lost decade for Trump. It was the period of time he also cemented himself in this machine. Now, in 1996, the French modeling scout Jean-Luc Brunel moved over to America and started his Karen Models American branch.
Yes.
And we did go over Jean-Luc Brunel last time, so I'm going to splice that in now.
She introduces him to a French modeling agency head called Jean-Luc Brunel.
Oh.
Now, he's not like a guy with a clean image. Allegations about Brunel had already been exposed by Diane Sawyer on 60 Minutes back in 1988, and nothing ever came of it. We'll just have a look at some highlights of that report.
But one man Eileen Ford does associate with in Paris is this man, the head of Karen Models, one of the largest and most prestigious agencies in the country. His name is Jean-Luc Brunel. The girls told us Brunel is very careful about under the protection of Eileen Ford. But Courtney and Sherry, who are not Ford models, told us about the dinners he invites his other girls to attend with his male friends.
It's a me, Marcus. You are there for the purpose of somebody wanting to take you home to bed. He is acting as a matchmaker. He's got the agency. He's got the girls. His friends say, oh, Jean-Luc, I'd like to meet some girls, or we're having a party tonight. Can you bring some girls?
And what happens if you say no?
You don't work.
Well, you've actually known, be very careful on this, you actually have known that he has made someone pay a professional penalty for saying no.
I know. I paid a penalty for saying no.
Yeah. There's also, I don't know how to say it without completely fucking like YouTube rankings, but like date rape going on by Jean-Luc Brunel with the girls, directly him as well.
That seems pretty obvious, yeah.
And I think that's sort of an important detail to take in there, because you've got a guy. So this is a guy. So he sorry, where's my bloody screen? So he's modeling agency, Karen Models, and then the agency that he then went on to form with Epstein. It's called MC Squared. It gets called MC2 sometimes, but it's MC Squared.
Yeah, because to be clear, Karen Models wasn't his agency. He was the scout for that agency.
Yeah. Then he formed one with Epstein, and there's, this is like a recruitment funnel. So it's like he had a global network of scouts and a constant fresh stream of women coming through his doors every day. And later, testimonies consistently allege that Brunel specialized in a very specific demographic, often from Eastern Europe and Russia, and crucially, usually in a state of financial or professional desperation. His agencies also provided this legitimate cover story for these women. They could arrange visas, provide housing in these model apartments in Paris and New York, give the woman a perfectly plausible reason for being in Epstein's orbit, being flown around and generally disappearing off the radar of concerned family members.
Yeah.
He wasn't just out there like finding the girls. He was managing their entire entry into the West, thus their entire existence within this system.
Yeah.
Brunel became a full partner and bought his own formidable infrastructure and established deniable supply chain to his joint venture with Epstein, ensuring the flow of the network's most critical currency from Europe to the newly established South American hub, and then from there into the USA.
And now that that's over, I will point out that the timeline was off, and actually MC2 wasn't started until like 2002. Karen Models, MC2 is when Epstein came in. I think he chucked in about $1 million to start that agency. Karen Models came in 96, which is interesting because 96 is the year that Trump started his Miss Universe pageants. And, you know, I haven't, well, it's not that I haven't dug into it. I've tried, but there's nothing to like sort of link the two. But I think it's very interesting that Trump started Miss Universe at the same time as Brunel was getting his modeling agency getting established in America. Then in 1999, Trump started his Trump modeling agency.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're just moving pretty girls around, right? That seems to be, at least on the surface. You can understand the appeal of these sorts of industries.
Or Trump modeling agency was existed from 1999 until 2017 after Trump became president. Right?
That's what you wanted a president.
In that almost 20-year span, its new talent division never launched the career of a single model.
Okay. Yeah, well, he's a shit businessman.
20 years. A modeling agency is around for 20 years and never launched the career of a single new model.
Yeah, because it's just an excuse to be in a room with lots of pretty women who you have some sort of power over. It's an excuse to walk into
the change rooms during a beauty pageant. That's what it fucking is.
One thing I will add to the conversation we had last time, because this was interesting, reading the Epstein's birthday book, you know, the birthday book that came out that Ghislaine made for his 50th. So going through there, one of the interesting things. So we think, this Jean-Luc Brunel, he's just a pretty boy, playboy party guy who just, like it's pretty much just exclusively a model thing. But his contribution to the birthday book is actually like a pretty elaborate mathematical sciencey kind of thing. And like, it doesn't look like a joke. Like it's not particularly advanced maths, but it's not like moderate stuff. So yeah, he's got all these mathematical formulas.
I bet if you ran them all through a calculator and then you turn that calculator upside down, it'll say boobs.
Well, it says here 10 is the most beautiful number, which isn't really what you want to be
true, there's no disputing that.
It does have a lot going for it, but in the context of this book, well, that's not really what you want to be saying. Do not rush to be 100 years old.
Actually, no. Yeah, and not in the context of Epstein.
He's got names like Euclid, Archimedes, Epstein, Pythagoras, Brunel.
They're names that you generally would say in the same sentence, for sure. Yeah. Pythagoras, Brunel, Epstein, Yeah,
and now it's sort of like like I said, it's not particularly advanced mathematics. It's sort of like high school kind of stuff. But still, it's interesting that that's in their vocabulary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is, I thought that Jean-Luc Brunel was just this modeling agent party guy.
Well, to have that expose on 60 Minutes in the late 80s.
What was this one? Jean-Luc Brunel's? Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then launch that same agency in America 8 years later without anyone even blinking twice is ballsy and amazing.
That's what they do, these guys. They just don't give a fuck. They're like, no, go ahead.
Not one bit.
Anyway,
so that's what's going on in the West. Things are going great for the white-collar criminals of New York City.
Always
unfortunately, sorry, yes?
They always do go great for the white-collar criminals in New York City.
Well, kind of always.
Generally speaking, on average, you're going to be all right.
Yeah, last millennium, things always went great for people in the West, in New York, the white-collar criminals in New York City. Unfortunately, for the people living in the East, their world was exploding into chaos. And the years from 95 to the turn of the millennium is when you see the true success or catastrophe of the network's Cold War projects. First, you have to get your head around the fact that the Wackle network's support for the Mujahideen wasn't just about sending them guns and cash. They were teaming up with them. The Western Goals Foundation, remember, is the intel wing of the John Birch Society. I can't tell you the hows or the whys, but what I can tell you is that Osama bin Laden, in his compound, when he died, had a whole bunch of John Birch-style literature on it.
What does that mean, John Birch style?
The narrative in this literature was all about a secret international cabal of godless bankers and globalist elites trying to control the world. For a radical Islamist worldview, this stuff was like rocket fuel. It could adapt perfectly. the international communist conspiracy was seemingly replaced with the international Jewish crusader conspiracy. The Federal Reserve became the Zionist banking system. And as a consequence, they started getting really worried about the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Completely justified, but I digress. Okay. And this is a critical point. I mean, I don't know how he got that literature, but I know that he worked very closely with the groups that fucking distribute that literature in the 80s.
Yeah. He had a bit of weird internet stuff on there, didn't he?
Yeah, like heaps of just like real like Illuminati stuff and like
some memey shit, or am I? Yeah, not memey,
this is a critical point.
I remember reading something about some funny American internet-based kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they basically have the ideological blueprint that justified their turn against what were their American patrons, who were now perfectly framed as the ultimate globalist enemy. So with that ideological bomb ticking, you then had two main fronts where this managed chaos was allowed to fester. The first was the Russian front, the First Chechen War from 94 to 96. Chechnya became the new primary battleground for the veteran Arab Afghans. It was a magnet for foreign fighters, including infamous commanders like the Saudi-born Ibn al-Khattab and his murderous mate Samil Basayev. This wasn't an organic local conflict. It was actively fueled by the Saudi GID and their Western partners, who saw it as a perfect opportunity to keep bleeding the Russian state and prevent it from getting back on its feet in the Caucasus. This is one of the key figures, and who was one of the key figures managing the narrative and most likely logistics of all the charitable funds flowing from the kingdom to the Chechen cause. Gonna have a guess?
Khashoggi.
Jamal Khashoggi.
Hey!
But then at the same time, you have the Al-Qaeda front.
There with just the last name.
Yeah, well, Adnan's very old at this point.
Yeah, sure.
At the same time, you have the Al-Qaeda front. The Soviets gone, the movement fractured. 91 Gulf War was the trigger, as we mentioned last time. But by 95, the split was complete. Osama bin Laden was kicked out of Saudi Arabia. He sets up shop first in Sudan. And then after 96, he goes back to his old turf in Afghanistan. In 96, he issues his first public fatwa.
Sorry.
A formal declaration of war against America.
He sets up shop where, did you say?
Initially in Sudan, but then in 1996, he
Africa?
Went back to Afghanistan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wasn't there for long. He was only there for about a year. But then he went back to Afghanistan and stayed in there.
Oh, yeah,
so
it is.
96.
Yeah, that is just across. Sudan is just
right
across the strait. From, yeah. Just below Egypt.
So declared formal declaration of war against America for putting troops on Saudi soil. And then in 1998, he proves he's not bluffing with the U.S. embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. So at this point, Jamal Khashoggi's mission takes on a new urgent importance. His meetings with bin Laden in Sudan and Afghanistan then weren't just interviews anymore. He was now a damage control officer and a high-level intelligence gatherer sent by a panicked Prince Turkey to gauge the true capabilities and intentions of their premier rogue asset. And it's adjacent to this environment that we see the full realization of the privatized intelligence agencies.
Yes.
So if we look at the world they've created here, and this is literally like direct ramifications of this fucking shady fucking Cold War operations going on in the 70s and 80s. But by the mid-90s, it's a bloody mess of stateless terrorists, hollowed out nations, and complex criminal jihadi networks. The old models of covert action, the state-centric safari clubs, they're useless in a world like this. Upgrades were needed. As far as I can tell, 3 key players popped up around this network to fill this need. First one is basically a private MI6. This is called Hakluyt and Company. Founded in London in 1995.
Called what?
Hakluyt, Haklyt. Its personnel list reads like an alumni register for MI6. It's founded and staffed by former senior officers of Britain's Secret Intelligence Service. The cover story was it was a strategic business consultancy, but the reality was that Hakluyt was the privatized, deniable, for-profit arm of the British deep state, the ultimate expression of the gentlemen spies taking off their official uniforms and putting on very expensive suits. So while the British side of this privatized network was formalizing its own corporate vehicle for intelligence, the Americans weren't just sitting on their hands. Right at the turn of the millennium, they built their own version. This is called Diligence LLC. This is the American Hakluyt. It wasn't a competitor, but a joint venture. The investigative journalist F. William Engadal, he confirms that Diligence was created in close partnership with Hakluyt, formal corporate consummation of the Anglo-American special relationship. And when you look at who was running these firms, you realize this isn't just ex-spooks hanging up a shingle. This is the American establishment itself going into business. The board they assembled was the Deep State Incorporated. William Webster, the only man in history to serve as the director of both the CIA and the FBI. Richard Burt, former US ambassador and senior member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Lord Powell of Bayswater, Margaret Thatcher's most trusted foreign policy advisor. Edward Mateus of the Carlyle Group. Public reports from the time explicitly name one of Diligence LLC's leading customers, Saudi Arabia. Jamal Khashoggi's own private consulting firm had a direct working relationship with Diligence Middle East. But the world was getting messier, especially in the East. Russia had been looted. The jihadi network was fracturing and turning violently anti-Western. So up pops another private firm that can operate in that specific environment. This is called Far West Limited. And when you think about it, the name should explain it all. Far West was purpose-built for the emerging chaotic battlefields, a private, deniable entity that could interface directly with both state intelligence agencies and non-state actors like jihadi groups, oligarchs, criminal networks, etc. Could operate across multiple fronts simultaneously, conducting sophisticated political, financial, and information warfare.
Boss.
Their solution was a select group of specialists who perfectly matched the need of this new battlefield. There's a whole list of people part of Far West, but rather than go into them all, I've just picked what I see as the sort of three most important ones, or for anything that we touch on in this timeline anyway. And I'm going to just preface this bit here as Far West is, there's shady companies and there's Far West. And this is like a pro-West private intelligence agency based in Russia. So information is scarce, is what I'm saying. You know, I found some sources, like so the main source for anything on Far West is left.ru, and it's like a Russian sort of like left-wing investigative journalism sort of outlet. It's not, I wouldn't call it like a news outlet, but it's.
I think I get the idea.
But yeah, you get what I mean. But like, I don't know. Some things that I was reading about him made it seem like maybe like one of these Far West guys was actually a part of left.ru. And then it's like, well, can you trust anything that they say? I don't know. And I'll maybe elaborate that on a little more afterwards. But like, I think this information is sound, is what I'm saying. I think it's sound. I've done my diligence, if you excuse the pun.
Well, it sounds like this is sort of the beginning of the efforts to, well, not the beginning, but an extension of the efforts to sort of capture the conversation on both sides, kind of thing. You know what I mean? To control that leftist, to get their influence into any potential, onto the leftist side of affairs.
Well, yeah, I think I think at left.ru is a legitimate, seems to be like an actual good Russian source of journalism, something that's very hard to do in Russia. But yeah, you're right with what you say. And I'll confirm that for you in a bit when we go through this. But so it seems like the three main guys of Far West is this guy, Vladimir Filin. He's a Banderite veteran. He's the head of a Russian think tank funded by George Soros's Open Societies Foundation. Allegedly, he's actually in direct business with Soros in some ethanol business in Brazil. He was perfectly positioned to manage the Western political and financial interface with this network. Then you had Anton Surikov. He's ex-GRU information warrior, PSYOP master. He's there for managing the increasingly complex narratives and disinformation campaigns needed to operate in this environment. And finally, the ultimate ace in their hole is Ruslan Saidov, the Chechen Sufi insider. His value was paramount. Proven ability to manage and even extract key Al-Qaeda assets. He managed to get the future leader of Al-Qaeda out of a Dagestan prison. He was a conduit to the very jihadi networks that the West now claim to be fighting. So while Hakluyt was the gentleman spy side, and Diligence was the corporate fusion of Western intelligence. Far West was the brutal operational arm designed for the real on-the-ground chaos of the Eastern Theater.
It's very hard to keep track of who's fighting for who and what's, you know what I mean?
It gets so fucking confusing. Like,
yeah.
You don't even know. You don't even know, Daniel.
Like, which side are these cunts on? It's fucking...
I don't fucking know, mate. I actually don't know. But all I know is, like, they working with, like, this is essentially, like, arms of the Carlyle Group.
Right.
And this is my kicker in this whole thing, this whole section here. And this, I think this is big. To me, this is big anyway. I think you might understand how big this is too. We'll see. Let me just cue up this clip here. All right. So, Diligence was a joint Anglo-American venture from the start. It was founded by two guys, a British guy and an American guy. The British co-founder, he was a guy called Nick Day, former officer in Britain's Domestic Intelligence Service, MI5, and a veteran of the elite Special Boat Services. The American co-founder, who spearheaded this crucial private intelligence firm, serving as its president and overseeing its operations in the Americas, was this guy.
I know there's a lot of talk about, did he have some sort of intel connection, right?
Right.
That from my perspective, it's complete speculation. But I will say, like, from an operational perspective, I have no idea. Was it Mossad? Was it anybody? Who knows?
Right.
But from an operational perspective, if you see a guy like this who's super connected and all the way back to 2008 was like his first trial, right? So he's had a long history of these problems. But if you know that he's kind of engaged in a variety of things. As an example, if I'm Chinese intel, right, and I just read the goddamn entertainment news, and there's these rumors and allegations of high-level people flying off to his island, I'm going to think that's interesting because potentially, if I could get an accessed source there, if I can get somebody right inside that operation, whether it's Ghislaine Maxwell, or whether it's Epstein himself, whether it's somebody who's just on the outskirts of it. Maybe I'll start picking up some pretty interesting leverageable information on people that maybe I want to influence. Right?
And it's so funny to me that it's always comes down to like carnal needs.
So the founder and head of Diligence LLC is the guy who the internet knows as Joe Rogan's CIA handler, Mike Baker.
Mike Baker. Oh, okay. Yeah, that name sounds familiar.
And we'll finish because I think it's pretty funny. So he asks him what he thinks about the Epstein files, and I think just like viewing it through this lens, it's just interesting to see his like squirmy response and what he pivots to. You know what? Yeah. There is, what country there is zero connections to Epstein from?
China. Yeah, that's interesting.
Very interesting. Because this guy came out of nowhere. Like, he just all of a sudden started appearing on Joe Rogan's show.
Mike Baker.
Yeah. Years ago. I think like 2017, 2018, maybe even 2016.
Has he been on a few times?
Heaps. Comes on like once or twice a year.
All right. Interesting. And he was the founder of Diligence LLC, along with Nick Day.
And I mean, I think that's... it's really interesting considering also this clip, which I do not have queued.
He has been on a bunch. So many times.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's weird. He's not a personality at all. Like, he doesn't have a presence. And when you take...
I got the first one here back, like, it's 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Back, episode 5-1. Wait, where'd it go? 541. Interesting.
Consider that Joe Rogan has a long time relationship with Alex Jones since before the podcast started. And then consider this speech that Alex Jones made in 2015.
It's so real that I haven't been collected by Trump. We're together in the fight. And so I'm not going to say what Trump said to me privately many times, but let's just say this. We are definitely birds of a feather that fly together. And I know all the secrets without ever talking to Trump. Because my dad was just like his dad. And we were drinking from the very same well. So people say, how the hell are you guys so synced? We are spiritually synced. Not fake Bible thumpers. We love God. But we're not out to get people, and we don't like people suppressing people. And Trump was reading Western Goals by Congressman Larry McDonald for a decade. And so was I when I was a little kid, while my dad was reading it. Like an Army colonel at the house, an FBI guy, and, you know, my dad would like be, you know, all this stuff going on, and they were just all, they didn't want power. Those men didn't want power. They were powerful men. They were from powerful families. They were strong. They wanted to defend America.
They were selling shitloads of drugs.
And so when I was 10 years old and 5 years old and hearing all this, Donald Trump was reading this, and his lawyer, Roy Cohen, on the board of Western Gulf, the heart of the resistance, knowing all this was coming, Donald Trump, man, he was there. So, yeah, I was synced with Donald Trump when I was 5 years old. Because when you're 5 years old and you're getting your uncle wounded off a C-130 at the Air Force Base, or you're sitting around the table and a bunch of guys are sitting around talking about the country, you're listening to this and you know this isn't TV, this isn't the movies, this is the real thing. Your little ears go, you're listening to it just like Donald Trump did. He was a man when all this was happening. And Roy Cohen told him everything. His dad already knew it all too. And so now they've got basically a John Birch Society president up there who knows how to fight all their tricks, and their worst nightmares come true. That's why they're so freaked out. Everyone asks who he really is. To a trained eye, you read that Politico article, and it is just like, wow. In fact, put it back on screen if you can. I'll give folks the headline, but scroll down. I'll give them the headline. Thanks.
This is the article I read from in the first part of this thing when talking about the Western Goals Foundation, by the way.
Larry McDonald.
It's the congressman who created his own deep state. Really? And of course, he was exposing the real deep state. Oh, and who was the deputy head of it? Roy Cohen.
Oh.
John Trump's chief mentor and Fred Trump's big buddy. And I told you Trump was recruited by a group of patriots decades ago, and he kept saying, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. It got so bad, he refused them 5 years ago, and then finally his wife came to him and got to do it. But the point is, you read this article, this is all the secrets of Trump, actually. It's called Western Gold.
They're just like soak in what he's saying there.
Yeah.
He's saying that the Western Goals Foundation have been encouraging Trump to run for president. He's saying Trump is part of the Western Goals nexus and that they've been shaping him up for president for 20 years. And they are the group. So when they talk about this group of white hats, the QAnon people, the QAnon group that tapped Trump on the shoulder and got him to run, he's talking about this network that we're looking at.
Did you say this was 2015?
So it was 2016. Sorry, I got
2016. Okay, right. Well, you know who I think told him that?
Pasobi?
Yeah. Pashenik. Yeah.
Pashenik. That's one. Steve Pashenik. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That sounds like that's exactly where that comes from.
Yeah. This is one of them. Yeah.
Thanks for telling us, Alex. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. I mean, it's annoying how he tries to talk Trump up as this. Yeah, he was sitting there when he was 5 years old reading the shit. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. But we get the idea. Like, what he's saying is spiritually correct in that it has come from this. But Trump is just, you'll just, fuck. These cunts just, they identified the potential of Trump and successfully deployed him to achieve their Western goals. And now look at him. Now he's up on the stage at the UN today telling them all to get fucked. It's exactly what they want.
Elbow.
It's exactly what they want. Oh, yeah, he did. That was nice. Anyway, I mean, credit to these assholes. They did it. You know, they had their goals.
Yeah.
And they accomplished them.
They very explicitly stated them and followed through.
they told us.
Yeah. What a secret. This is the thing. It's like, this is none of this. Like, it's like I don't have any access to any classified files. I've got access to mainstream news reports and interviews.
Oh, let's not talk your informational archaeology skills down.
Well, no, but
yes,
I mean, it's like,
but fundamentally, you don't have any passwords. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, fuck. You got me thinking about this Mike Baker guy now. We've talked for a long time about how, Joe Rogan's being compromised.
Yeah. And this is the fucking end. And it's funny because it's like, and I think I've even, I think it was you that I said this to. If I don't remember if it was actually on like a recording or not, but like when I used to be like mad into the Joe Rogan podcast, from about like 2011 till about 2018, 2019. And what the downfall of the podcast for me was when this Mike Baker guy started appearing, really. Like it sort of marked the downfall of also I guess not really the downfall, but it's just like, when you think something's
the beginning
cool because like it's like something you've just kind of like discovered and they talk about interesting stuff, but it's like once it sort of becomes mainstream, it just all of a sudden you kind of start to just like see it for like what it is, like a bunch of bullshit and people with no idea what they're talking about, acting like they're experts.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened once this Mike Baker guy started appearing. So interesting stuff. Someone needs to tell Schmucko, Fucko, and Ducko that their daddy's been up to no good. And so as for Far West, we can get an idea of some of the work they were doing from this interview I found with Vlad Filin, one of the founders. I quote, he says, connected with the secured transport of, this is translated from Russian, by the way, so I don't know if it's all going to make sense. Connected with the secured transport of commercial shipments from Afghanistan, where we have an office, to ports in the Black Sea. But the most commercially attractive route seems to be that from Bagram to the US airbase in Manas in Kyrgyzstan. By the way, it is quite near the Russian airbase in Kant. A significant flow of shipments passes through Magas. There's a niche there for commercial shipments too. This is very profitable. It's much more profitable than routing commercial shipments from Afghanistan through Tajikistan. Therefore, last year we completely withdrew all shipping through Tajikistan and closed our office in that country. Who our partners are is a commercial secret. I can say that they are 4 private firms from 3 countries, Turkey, Russia, and the USA, which engage, among other things, in shipping. One of these firms is a subdivision of a well-known American corporation. This firm is a co-founder of our agency. Now, firstly, drugs. He's talking about drugs. Lots of drugs.
Is this
Secondly,
like heroin?
2 American corporations. Well, even though there's no documentation we're ever going to see that shows like a signed MOU between Far West and Diligence LLC, we have enough circumstantial evidence. If we're just tracking the fingerprint of Khashoggi, then it is what it is, because Khashoggi ended up working for Far West. But there is one source, and it's one of the only sources on Far West that isn't directly from Far West itself. I don't know how trustworthy it is, but it's the only source. And it says, quote, explicitly says, Far West LLC's main partners are Kellogg Brown and Root, a.k.a. Halliburton, and Diligence Middle East. And it's not all drugs and money, and presumably girls. By 1999, in the East, the situation was dangerously volatile. The looting of Russia throughout the 90s created a weak, chaotic state presided over by an ailing and deeply unpopular Boris Yeltsin. His inner circle, the oligarchs known as the family, who had all profited immensely from the chaos, they were facing an existential threat. A rival political faction led by former Prime Minister Yevgeny Primakov and the Moscow mayor Yuri Luzkov. They were poised to take power, and they were running on an anti-corruption platform that promised investigations and prosecutions that would dismantle this entire Yeltsin-era power structure. In other words, would have been the best thing ever to happen to Russia. So, the Kremlin family needed a miracle. They needed a small, victorious war to galvanize the nation, and they needed a strong successor to Yeltsin, a strong man who could both win that war and guarantee their future security. So, naturally, they decided to go down the route of state-sponsored terrorism, aka the strategy of tension. And well, let's just be fucking real here. What followed looks like, to me, like the dress rehearsal for the main event that would follow 2 years later. I'm talking about the Moscow apartment bombing. The operation began not far from Moscow, on the French Riviera. According to the Russian investigative weekly called Versia, which cited sources from French intelligence, a secret meeting took place on July 4, 1999. The location was a private villa in a town in France nestled between Nice and Monaco. This private villa, do you want to guess who it belonged to, Daniel?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Adnan Khashoggi.
Oh, sorry. I let you down there.
a secure, deniable safe house. Attending were the key players in this conspiracy. Alexander Voloshin, Boris Yeltsin's chief of staff. He represented the highest levels of the Russian state. And he was meeting with Shamil Basayev, the premier Chechen jihadi warlord, the designated enemy of the coming war. This meeting was brokered by Anton Surikov of Far West LLC. The plan hatched in Khashoggi's villa was simple. Basayev's forces, with the tactic approval and likely financial backing of the Kremlin, as suggested by later transcripts of oligarch Boris Berezovsky's discussing money transfers to the Chechen radicals, but staged a dramatic televised invasion of the neighboring Republic of Dagestan. This manufactured crisis, as respected Russian editor Vitaly Trechikov later concluded, was a lure. It was an operation by the Russian special services to create a legitimate excuse for a new full-scale war. With the staged war in Dagestan underway, the bombings began. Between September 4 and 16th, 4 apartment buildings in 3 Russian cities were destroyed in the middle of the night, killing over 300 sleeping civilians and creating a tidal wave of terror across the nation. The timing was perfect, created the public illusion of jihadi revenge for the Russian military's actions in Dagestan. Into this atmosphere of fear stepped a nearly unknown former KGB officer who'd been recently appointed prime minister. His name is Vladimir
Putin.
He promised to hunt down the terrorists and wipe them out in the outhouse. His tough, decisive response instantly transformed his public image from that of a grey bureaucrat. I almost said gay bureaucrat. Transformed Putin from a gay bureaucrat into a national savior. The operation, however, it had a hiccup. On September 22, in the city of Ryazan, local police arrested 3 FSB agents who'd been caught planting a live bomb, complete with a timer and military-grade hexagen explosives in the basement of an apartment building. The public exposure of state security agents planning a bomb forced the head of the FSB, Nikolai Patrushev, into a humiliating public declaration that the entire event had been a training exercise. This Ryazan incident remains the single most powerful piece of public evidence that the FSB had the means, motive, and operational capability to have carried out the preceding bombings. But this is
a false flag, basically.
Yeah, but this is the interesting bit, and this is goes back to what you were saying before about capturing the narrative. So this is where the operation entered its final phase, the information warfare phase. The Ryazan incident created a bit of a credibility problem, but it was Far West's ideologue, Anton Surikov, who executed the countermove. The network didn't deny the inside job theory. They authored and controlled it. Through the think tank, the Institute for the Study of Globalism, which was the institute funded by the Open Societies Foundation, run by Vladimir Filin, Surikov wrote an article entitled Collusion. He launched the specific targeted narrative that the FSB alone was responsible. This narrative was then deliberately fed and amplified by credible Western academics like John Dunlop at the Hoover Institute, giving it the stamp of Western intellectual approval. The result was a strategic masterpiece of Surkovian non-linear warfare. No, Surkovian, I'm right. Just not referring to Anton Surikov, referring to Vladimir Surkov.
Right.
Russian psyop nerds out there. The network's kinetic wing, a rogue GRU FSB faction allied with their Chechen proxy Basayev, executes the bombing, achieving the domestic goal of installing Putin and launching the Second Chechen War. Simultaneously, the network's information warfare wing creates and disseminates a counter-narrative which achieved the international goal of permanently framing Putin as an illegitimate monster or sowing irresolvable confusion about the event's true architects. And that's why I say it seems like a dress rehearsal for the main event 2 years later, but we'll cross that bridge as we come to it. They cracked the Moscow bombings, proved the network could successfully orchestrate a terror attack, manage the political fallout, and control the subsequent public and conspiratorial narratives from all sides. They cracked the code, and the weapon remained perfectly intact, stronger than ever, ready to point at the next target. Now, as you brought up before, and I completely agree, it is all very confusing. Like, these guys installed Putin. In the current day, wouldn't they be, like, supporting Putin? Does this mean that Putin's in on it? I don't fucking know. I don't think so. Like, I think he's probably in on it, like, he knows what they did, and he knows who they are. But I'm guessing he, like, went rogue at some point. I don't know. Maybe we can shed more light on that as we go. But I got no fucking idea.
I mean, I don't even know. When you say these guys, who are we talking about anymore?
Far West LLC,
okay,
who are partners and were created by, according to Vladimir Filin, Diligence and Hakluyt. But as the millennium turned, Bill Clinton, Epstein's White House connection, he was leaving office. And while Clinton might have been their man, Al Gore was probably not going to cut it. The network, having just perfected its sophisticated new apparatus, they needed a president who understood the game, who was of the right pedigree, and who would be absolutely compliant for whatever was coming next. Basically, they needed a George Bush type character in the driver's seat, and they had just a guy, George Bush.
An amenable Texan.
Yeah, an amenable Texan, or George Bush. Perfect. They just had to make sure that he won the election, and boy, was it a close one.
Preferably with a father who was like in the CIA or something.
And like one of the founding patrons of this whole network, yeah. And at this point, senior advisor of the Carlyle Group. The solution to installing George Bush became known as the Brooks Brothers riot.
Yeah.
It's usually painted as a spontaneous, if a bit heated, political protest, but in reality, because nothing's ever fucking real and spontaneous anymore, it was a professionally executed political warfare operation with one objective: stop the recount and secure the presidency for George W. Bush. The undisputed field commander of this political insurgency was who, Daniel?
Roger Stone. Roger Stone.
Roger Stone. I hate
I mean,
this fucking world.
They're leaving it a bit late, though, to be honest, for these grand plans. But I guess they're just doing whatever they need to do in that situation, aren't they? It's
Yeah, and like, you know, Roger Stone's running Trump's political campaign in this same election. So,
oh, he is too. That's right. Yeah.
we don't need to explain Roger Stone because
But that wasn't really. I mean, that was a political campaign. Like, it wasn't a genuine shot. It was more of like a show. Yeah.
No, but like it's just what I'm saying. Like when I said before, like I say that with confidence that it wasn't a serious run. It was just to bolster Bush because it was his campaign was run by Roger Stone, who was fucking running Bush's campaign. So yeah, we don't need to explain Roger Stone because he turns up in every fucking investigation we do. If anyone listening or watching doesn't know who he is, then good, lucky you. The Brooks Brothers riot itself was an astroturfed insurgency. November 22nd, 2000, during a critical recount meeting at the Miami-Dade County Election Board, a group of well-dressed young men suddenly stormed the building. They were shouting, pounding on doors, and creating an atmosphere of such intense intimidation that the election officials, intimidated and overwhelmed, shut down the recount.
Yeah.
The nickname Brooks Brothers came from their preppy outfits. But they weren't like local grassroots voters. Investigations by like, you know, serious journalists from outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post confirmed that the rioters were actually just like paid Republican operatives, lobbyists, and congressional aides. They've been flown in from Washington, D.C., specifically.
Fucking cunts. Just these fucking... Not them specifically, but like, yeah, they're just these Roger Stone assholes. Yeah, and them specifically, but just... God, just going... They're just banging the door. Nah! Fucking...
Yeah.
And then that's it. Then they change the direction of the world. Fuck's sake.
It was a classic, professionally managed astroturfing operation. So let's peel back another layer and look at the fingerprints of our network here, because the links are direct and undeniable. So firstly, you got the Bush, Carlyle, Diligence nexus. This entire operation, because every bit of this calculated chaos was run on behalf of the George W. Bush campaign, and who's in the Bush family orbit, his father, former president, former CIA director, advisor of the Carlyle Group, George H.W. Bush. Yeah, at this point, he was the senior advisor. One of the biggest private equity firms in the world, deeply entwined with intelligence and defense contracting. Edward Mateus, founding board member of Diligence LLC, managing director of the Carlyle Group. That creates an undeniable 1 degree of separation link between the political beneficiary of the riot, the Bush campaign, and the command structure of this newly formed private CIA. It's all very closely connected. And then if you look at the legal command, the public face of the operation, the man sent by the Bush campaign to lead the whole Florida recount battle, that was James Baker III. He wasn't just any lawyer. He was George H.W. Bush's former Secretary of State and White House Chief of Staff, a trustee of the Council on Foreign Relations. Most critically, he was a senior partner at the Carlyle Group. The man leading the legitimate legal fight in the courthouse was a senior executive of the same private equity firm that connects directly to the command structure of Diligence LLC, which connects straight to Hakluyt and Far West. Like no degrees of separation. And then finally you have like the believer infrastructure, and this is the first time we've mentioned the believers, but if you think back to part 1 where I explained the terminology, and we had the architects, the rider class, and then we had the like service tier. Well, the rider class is called the rider class because the lowest tier is the true believers, and these guys are the horse.
Okay.
See what I mean? The riders and the horse.
Got it.
And the believers, these guys are your guys that rock up to the Florida fucking recount in Brooks Brothers suits and start banging on the fucking door screaming to stop the fucking recount. They have no idea what's going on. They just want their fucking team to win. They're just true believers. And, you know, all these guys were drawn by the foot soldiers here. Like I mentioned, they're drawn from the ranks of like junior staffers for Republican congressmen, and then a whole bunch of people, young members of conservative think tanks in Washington, D.C., these same think tanks like the Heritage Foundation that form the core of the Atlas Network. So the grassroots muscle for the riot was supplied by the same grassroots fucking people we see at every fucking bullshit AstroTurf protest. And at this point, and, you know, 25 years later, still stronger than ever, this network churns out a steady supply of loyal, fanatical, unquestioning young operatives who truly believe they're fighting for America. Well, they're actually fighting for, I guess they are fighting for American interests, just not
private equity.
Yeah. So
rich white cunts.
Yeah. The 2000 election wasn't
Western goals.
Hanging chads or legal. Yeah, they're fighting for Western goals. Election wasn't decided by hanging chads or legal appeals. It was seized. It was a political warfare campaign that combined sophisticated legal maneuvering, cunning media manipulation, and a staged astroturfed insurgency designed to create the illusion of public outrage. It was run by the network's most trusted contractors, Stone, the dirty trickster, James Baker, the dirty fixer, on behalf of its most important political dynasty, the Bush family, and it connects directly to the corporate and ideological infrastructure we have been mapping: Carlyle, Diligence, and the Atlas Network.
Yeah. Also, just taking it. You know what I mean? Like just claiming it. They're just going out there and saying, yeah. A point's being made. That's one of the advantages that fascists have, is that they just take the shot. You know. Liberals and progressives, we tend to sort of be a little bit more guarded in the moves we make, and we go, oh no, well, hold on, we've got to make sure, is that legal, is that ethical, is that whatever, and you know, oh, I don't want to do that, it's a bit risky. But fascists just fucking go for it, and then in going for it, they end up getting it because they just have the element of surprise, they have the momentum, they have, you know, it's an evolutionary thing where it succeeds because you know, some people don't take the shot, and so whoever does take the shot gets it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's how they're doing it.
They ensured that president, deeply enmeshed in the world of oil, finance, and the intelligence community, will be sitting in the White House as the year ticked over to 2001.
Yeah, but you'd want to have a beer with him, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. Love to have a beer with him. Couple lines of blow. He's into that, isn't he? No, he was like in rehab. That's where he got, that's where he found God. That's where the old family reached out to him. Yeah, so Bush takes over, and the chaos created by the Brooks Brothers riot and the stalling of their results led to a lapse in communications between the intelligence agencies, which ultimately led to 9/11.
Okay.
But,
you say Bush takes over. He's called Bush's kid among the in group, isn't he?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but I would say yeah, probably.
Yeah, Cheney. It's Cheney and Bush's kid.
But so ticked over to 2001. Everything is all in place. They've got this fucking machine going. They've got this whole privatized international intelligence networks. All it needs is a crisis. And I don't know. I guess it was all just like chill from there, and nothing else really of note happened. Fast forward a few years, Trump had a bit of a turn of cheek. He became a good guy. Then Epstein went and killed himself in jail to try and make him look bad and help out Obama. Adnan Khashoggi died in 2017 of old age, and they happened to be the same year that Jamal Khashoggi butchered himself inside the Saudi embassy in Turkey. Completely.
He accidentally fell into a bandsaw.
Yeah, and we all lived happily ever after. The end.
True. Cool, sweet. Well, thank you.
I'm glad nothing happened. I'm glad this was a noble cause and nothing bad happened after this.
It is quite tragic to be able to point to that as like, you know, the very clear high water of our civilization, you know, like the late 90s, call it 2000 if you want. And you know, we had the late 90s R&B, the NBA.
R. Kelly was respectable.
and then
you know, having parties
on that fateful day in September.
You know what? We can't show footage of that fateful day in September, or even mention the date too many times, or we'll get downranked on YouTube. You know? Yeah.
Do you remember much about that day?
What I remember about that day is that it was my friend's birthday, and she was really disappointed.
Yeah. I was in year 12.
I remember my mum waking me up in the morning for school and being like, oh, there's been like a big like international like fucking incident. She got the radio on. I've never had the radio on.
Yeah.
And then I got to school, and I remember the whole school just being like in the quad, just sort of like standing around. Like everyone knew that like we're not having normal class right now. We all need to just be here in the quad because there's going to be something.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. Pretty amazing.
And this does not stop in September 2001 for this network. They're just getting fucking warmed up.
Well, exactly, yeah. Because then, I mean, I don't know how much Cheney features into these networks, but then he, you know, basically sets about systematically rearranging the structure of the presidential power and the whole White House and the whole government and everything. And he's just allowed to do it. Again, is the movie about him, or is the movie about W? I think it's a movie about him.
Well, there's a movie about Bush called W.
Yeah, and I think there's a movie about Cheney as well. It might be called Cheney. I don't know. But yeah, look, you don't want to rely on movies too much for history, but they do often give you a helpful little overview of any of those periods. And yeah, it's pretty remarkable the way that he did it. Again, just having the balls to just go out and do it. You know? Saying, here we go, I'm doing it. What the fuck are you going to do?
Like, you know, Dick Cheney was like the managing director of Halliburton before and after vice president gig. So he's like very much a key figure in this network as well, you know?
Yeah. Vice was the name of the film.
Yeah, so it's pretty grim. It's
very fucking grim.
So pretty grim.
I mean, it was grim enough until we get to that fateful day in September. So then what happens?
Yeah, well, nothing. Nothing happened, I don't think. I don't know.
It's all good.
I haven't written that bit of the script yet, so I just kind of stopped at September 10. You know what George Bush was doing on September 10?
Blowing hookers.
Bush and Dick Cheney? They were having dinner with John Howard and Peter Costello.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 50-year anniversary of the American-Australian Alliance.
Okay.
And this is, I've always thought, ever since I learned this, I thought this is kind of weird because it wasn't September 10, the date. It was like September 20-something, which was the 50th anniversary. But
Right.
they did the celebrations on September 10.
Look, it's hard to make the calendars work.
Yeah.
Right. Shit. So is that it? That's where we're gonna leave it. Okay.
I didn't want to press on past the 10th of September. I liked where it is, and I don't know. I feel like maybe things might get bad after that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a logical place to break up the story. Yeah, I mean, I'm keen to hear more. I know that it's not pleasant work.
Oh yeah, no, there's so much more to tell. I mean, I'm not done. We'll be doing one more part to this. We're gonna at least be going up until 2010, because and I don't want to sort of get a bit ahead of myself here because I haven't done the proper research yet. But in my preliminary research, this network is involved in like all the color revolutions that came in the 2000s.
Yeah.
And the 2008 financial crisis was caused by Bear Stearns.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yes, it's literally like every single major event of the last fucking 30 years is just this fucking network in the middle of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that I'd never even heard of these groups. Diligence LLC, Far West Limited.
Nobody has.
Well, I mean, Rogan listeners have, at least.
No, he doesn't mention the name of his company. He said...
He does. Here, episode 541. Mike Baker is a former CIA covert operations officer. Currently, he is president of Diligence LLC, a global intelligence and security firm.
Okay.
And I think it says that on most of the other ones as well.
Okay, I didn't realize...
Oh, now he's also... Now he's the current CEO of Portman Square Group.
Yeah, that's what
global
they're called now. Portman Square.
Okay, yeah. God, he's on every few months.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that the name was that. It's just like I knew that Diligence was his company because I looked him up. I looked into him before.
Yeah.
And I found, it's Diligence. So you can imagine, my shock. I mean, that was my biggest shock of this whole fucking research project was, realizing that Diligence LLC, and I'm like, that name's familiar. And I'm like, oh, no fucking shit. And I look at Mike Baker, Diligence LLC, and it is his fucking company. Like, no way.
Yeah.
My biggest revelation of this whole thing. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me. That cunt.
So it sounds like, I mean, was he getting in there before Teal? Let me see when Teal first appears. Yeah, that was just a year ago.
The introduction to that whole world was Eric Weinstein. And he was 2016 or 2015 or something. Interesting that I'm pretty sure it was the first episode of the Hudson Institute's podcast was hosted by Segar and Jetty, the co-hosts of Breaking Points.
No.
It's like an internet news thing that targeted at a younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
They've been on Rogan a bunch of times. He was the host. This is the Hudson Institute. Herman Khan, fucking Dr. Strangelove's fucking think tank. And the first guest on his podcast for the Hudson Institute was Eric Weinstein.
Right.
So,
and when do you think Eric Weinstein's first appearance was? Yeah, I've got 1320 here, 6 years ago. 1203, 6 years ago. 1022, 7 years ago. Yeah, right.
He appeared on that show when there was
8 years ago.
There was those big controversies about, it was like Jordan Peterson got fired from his university because he was refusing to...
Yeah, he's on here with Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein.
With trans people or some shit.
Yeah.
And then Brett Weinstein got booted from his university for some similar thing, and Eric Weinstein got some controversy for some other similar thing at the same time. And then they, which I'm pretty sure that was all manufactured, all three of those things. The law that Jordan Peterson was rallying against, I'm pretty sure that actually wasn't even a thing.
Yeah. But the point is, no, Mike Baker predates all these guys.
Yeah.
By a lot. So, you know, if you want to say like who gets him there, you know, Mike Baker probably helps orchestrate Brett Weinstein, well, could possibly theoretically help orchestrate Brett Weinstein going on there.
Yeah, well, I would say
so. I'm gonna have to go and listen to some of this stuff. I was trying to listen to some Rogan recently, actually.
Probably introduced him to Joe Rogan.
Alex Jones introduced who? Oh, okay, that's possible, I guess. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were friends from Austin. So yeah, Mike Baker played Alex Jones to get an introduction. Like I said, yeah, and then Alex Jones, oh yeah, hey Joe, I got this guy from CIA. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well,
yeah, I might have to listen to a bit more. I was
Western Goal, like, you know, Western Goals. I'm on the JBS side, and then Jones was like, you need to meet my friend Joe.
Yeah, pretty much. I was yeah, it's been interesting watching the Rogan sphere lately, actually, and you know the way that it's, you know, the backlash kind of thing. Have you've seen the Elephant Graveyard stuff? No, it's really good films, you know, YouTube films, but quite long documentary style, with, you know, comedy style too, about. What's it called? It's like how comedy was destroyed by an anti-reality doomsday cult.
Oh yeah, I think I have seen that. Yeah.
So he's done a few of them. That's the most recent sort of culmination of the whole thing. But yeah, it explores the different bits of pushback that they're experiencing from different parts of comedy, and like how the scene sort of seems to be imploding. And one of the people who was you know, featured, not pushing back very hard, but just like a little bit, not even against Rogan specifically, but against, like, you know, just that whole Austin scene. This guy Andrew Santino, whose comedy I've never really enjoyed, but you know, I appreciate being able to push back. Anyway, he was the most recent guest, and I'm interested to see how Rogan is handling this. You know, what his thoughts are on the administration at the moment with the whole, you know, the free speech and the Epstein and all that sort of stuff. Just interesting to watch him try and navigate that, you know. And obviously, we're not seeing much in the way of self-reflection, but still, it's culturally. You know, worth observing, I suppose. It snaps. I mean, yeah, maybe not even too far off, to be honest. Yeah. If they keep pushing, because the one thing about Trump is he's not going to back down, and so if the comedians keep on pushing, because now they know that they've got his buttons, and then he's going to keep on escalating. You know, Stephen Miller's going to keep on quoting fucking Goebbels, and they're going to keep on sending the army into these states, and they're going to be rounding up anyone who protests because they're Antifa. I mean, look, shit's escalating worryingly and depressingly fast, and it's very upsetting to watch all this shit that we've been...
Comedy, man, like, legalized comedy, you know?
Just even hearing that, I hate it. That was an excellent impression, by the way. That was spot on, and like, so I hate it.
It's an impression of a person pretending to be who thinks he's a cool guy.
Yeah, well, it sucks.
Comedy, man.
Don't do it anymore.
So fake. It's so fake.
That's sort of probably the low point of the year.
It's why it's like an easy impression to do, because it's someone doing a bad impression.
It's one of the most embarrassing things that humanity has ever produced. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch it play out.
6 months ago.
Oh my God.
You know? That was 6 months ago when Elon Musk said that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, look, well, I don't think we should get too optimistic, you know, about this turning point or the snapping or whatever. But fuck, I guess we'll see, you know. This is why it's interesting to watch the culture, because, you know, it comes from pressure from his peers, you know. It takes different comedians, your Mark Barons or your Stavroses or whoever, to come out and just talk shit about him. And then that's what gets the comedians. You know, they used Theo Von's face, the Department of Homeland Security used Theo Von's face in one of their recent grotesque pieces of content. It's like an ad thing for their deportations, how they like their ICE is going around rounding up immigrants and fucking setting off, and they use Theo Von's, like a clip of Theo Von in the beginning. I saw he put a tweet out saying, "Hey, this isn't fucking cool. Can you cut this shit out, please? Like, come on, this is getting a bit much." So, you know,
you did fucking get him elected, basically.
Well, yeah, he did. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, there is starting to be a bit of like a hold on here. And yeah, there's no guarantees that it's going to go all the way. But fuck, I guess we'll see, right? Exciting times.
There was I think it was a CNN piece, but it was like a video piece I saw it on YouTube where it was like a look into the world of comedy and sort of, I think that the question the reporter was trying to answer is like, why is comedy so like right wing now, or something like that? And
Mike Baker, Mike Baker's answer.
Fucking Diligence LLC, mate. But he interviewed Tim Dillon. The girl interviewed Tim Dillon, and it was like it was kind of a weird interview. It was kind of like standoffy almost, but he handled it well, and he was quite good. But he was a bit like.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
There
This is a little while back.
It was about 6 months ago, maybe, or maybe less than 6 months, a couple. Months.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that she said in that she's been she's like, thanks for sitting down with me, because I've had a lot of rejections because comedians are finding out that I'm from CNN, and they're literally saying to her, I don't want to sit down with you because I don't know what Rogan would think about me sitting down with CNN. And I think like and Tim Dillon shut that down pretty great. He's like, that's the insecure fucking comedians you're talking to. Like, Joe Rogan doesn't give a fuck. He's not out there saying don't speak to CNN. He doesn't care. He doesn't care either way.
Yeah.
But that's just like some insecure comedians wanting to get in with his fucking show, which is true. But it's interesting that that's the mindset of people at the moment, is like, I'm not even going to entertain this perceived left-wing media, though I don't know what is left-wing about CNN.
Yeah.
Except for like just not endorsing the Republicans constantly.
Well, that's the most annoying thing is calling the media leftists. Like they're not fucking leftists, you fucking guys.
No one's leftist. Bernie Sanders is barely a fucking leftist.
Exactly. Anyway. Well, that was thank you again. That was very illuminating, albeit fucking I don't want to say depressing, but daunting. Whatever. We got to know this shit. The first step is knowing this shit. So there we go.
Yeah. The second step is not being too loud about it, or all your accounts will be shut down.
Yeah. So telling people without getting shut down. That's the second step.
I'm trying, but it's hard because it's hard to fucking promote the interesting shit that's in the episodes.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah, fuck. Oh, well.
Yeah, what can you do, hey?
What can you do?
Talk of a political dirt unit.
It's typical of this job.